Then next he talks about his father's system, right? Here are some of the comments that are actually upon his father's system, and yet Tom does understand the defect of the system under which he and his sister have been brought up. So he tells Harthouse further that his father had crammed Louisa with all sorts of dry bones and sawdust. So crammed is a term that we use for the thing that is completely filled to the point, a point of even overflowing, right? So he says that his father had crammed Louisa with all sorts of dry bones. So if you look at the character of Louisa, she is nothing more than of dry bones full of sawdust. Sawdust is actually the term that we use for the product that whenever we actually whenever we shave the woods, right? The product that we actually gain from those woods is called as sawdust. So she is nothing more than that, dry bones and sawdust. So these are the two terms that he uses for his sister, because such was his system. That's why he was saying so. And he goes on to say that he himself was formed and trained in the same manner, and says that when I first left him, we mean that when I first left my father and went to old Bounderby, I was as flat as a warming pan. Okay, if you look at a warming pan is something like that, with the help of which it's a kind of pan with the help of we can warm up the things, right? So it is highly straight, having a wide, and we can say that straight sort of uh, handle with it, right? It's very much like that pan. And you know more about life than any oyster does. Oyster is actually a water animal, and that animal only knows how to take food and something like that. That's it. Nothing else is known to that animal. That's why he is utilizing over here a term for himself, that is oyster does. So he says this, but since then he has picked up a little, no thanks to the governor, he adds. Then he says again, no thanks to his father. Next, if we talk about this character, then this character is the damage he does to his sister. You'll see that during this interview with Harthouse, Tom has unknowingly and foolishly given him all the information that James Harthouse needed for his purpose. And in doing so, he has done a lot of damage to his sister. In this context, the author observes that if the whelp, that is Tom, had realized the mischief he had done that evening, he would have gone and drowned himself in the filthy waters of a nearby river. So Tom was actually indeed right when he called himself stupid early in his early life, because he has done a lot of damage to his sister. So you'll see that why author has utilized this term filthy water or filthy waters of the nearby river. As you know that was the time of industrialization, and there is, if you look at the rivers around those areas that are highly filthy, that are highly dirty. So that was the actually suggestion from the side of Charles Dickens to this, well, to this character, that is Tom. Next, if we talk about this character, is his misappropriation of the bank money. Okay, you will see that in order to compensate himself for the rigidity of the discipline under which he was brought up, Tom now takes to uh, evil courses, right? And he becomes a gambler and incurs heavy debts. So as he was actually loaded by heavy sort of debts, so uh, for some time he keeps asking his sister for money and receiving from her enough uh, to pay his gambling debts. But a stage comes when his sister can afford to pay him no more, and then he sees no alternative except this to actually misappropriate the funds of the bank, which were already in his custody. So at the same time, he was cunning enough to manipulate the evidence on the basis of which another man, namely Stephen Blackpool, actually he was plausibly be accused, and he was actually blamed of having committed a robbery at the bank, right? But as we know that and this was the whole thing that is actually planned by Mr. Tom, right? His sister has a dim suspicion that the robbery has been committed by Tom himself, but although she tries to probe him in order to find out the truth so that she can help him out of any possible trouble that may arise, right? Later on, if we look at the dying words of Stephen, he actually points out that the Tom as the real culprit. Real culprit is a person. Culprit is the person who is actually the offender, wrongdoer, or the guilty one. So this is actually told to us by Stephen Blackpool, right? Next, if we talk about his rank in gratitude to his sister. Okay, when we came to know, or when all the readers came to know about the dying words of Stephen, and he points out to Tom as the real culprit. At the same time, CC's suggestion Tom flees from the scene and takes shelter with Mr. Sleary at the later circus. Okay, there he is overtaken by Bitzer.